Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So I'm back with some more gameplay from the tournaments Discord. This time it's just a standard ELO game, so not for a tournament. But there were some interesting moments in this game, and certainly an interesting outcome. So I thought it'd be worth sharing this in a video. And yeah, I mean, I learned some things in this video as well, so hopefully this is a good way for me to share those with you, and hopefully you will learn some things as well. So I am going second in this game, which is unfortunate because there's quite a nice bird in the tray, that American red start. Probably the second best forest bird in the game, I'd say. So it just allows you to gain extra food from the bird feeder. And yeah, with my opponent going first and seeing that, they'll be taking that for their first move every day of the week. So I know that they're going to have a really strong forest bird, and particularly, looking at that end of round goal, the first one with the birds in the forest, that's going to give them a bit of a leg up there. But here we go with my starting hand, and you'll see it's not a terrible starting hand, but by no means the best. So that sapsucker is not bad. It's kind of similar to the red start in that it's going to get you extra food, but slightly worse in that you are forced to take worms, whereas the red start can let you gain anything. Really, what was missing from this was a nice wetland bird. So my only real option here is the woodstock, and normally not the kind of bird I'd look to be keeping from a starting hand. But I do have the rodentologist bonus card, so that's going to help get me a couple of extra points here. And if I do go with the sapsucker, I can hopefully get some more food early in the game and be able to get that woodstock down. Now I am also looking at this song sparrow, and really this isn't the kind of bird again I'd normally look to keep from a starting hand. But in this situation, it's actually going to work really well for me. So it can function as that second forest bird, but also as that second wetland bird to get me extra food and extra cards. But equally, looking at all these end of round goals, it's going to help me for every single end of round goal. And particularly, you look at those last two, it's got 5 egg spaces, so that's going to be really helpful for that. But yep, so as expected, my opponent does take the American red start. So I'm just going to get that sapsucker down straight away. And yeah, really at this point, my plan is just to get some eggs down on that and then go for food. Use the worm that I gained from the sapsucker there. That will let me play the song sparrow. And then I'm able to get 3 food. So I know the food in the bird feeder isn't what I'm looking for this woodstock. But I know with my opponent playing the red start, they're almost certainly going to gain food at some point. And they do in fact do it on that next turn. So yeah, I can get the song sparrow down. And then when I lay eggs, it's going to move it up into the forest with that migratory power. And yeah, then when I gain food, I can look to take either the worm or the seed. And then I'm just hoping on the reroll and looking for that fish to hopefully get this woodstock down. But yeah, really, I think, my first few turns at least, pretty straightforward. Just try and get these birds down. And, the key thing, I think, for when you're going second in a game is to make sure that your wetlands is set up nicely for this first end of round, because you're going to be going first in the second round and you get to see that fresh bird tray, and that doesn't happen very often. It's only with certain situations, obviously start of a new round, or if your opponent is going to take all the birds in the tray, that you get to see a fresh tray. So it doesn't happen too often. You will see that unfortunately I don't get the fish on the reroll, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I think it's still worthwhile me getting this woodstock down, just because, as I said, really I want to be looking to get something down in the wetlands and yeah, set myself up so that when that fresh tray comes up in the second round, I can really look to maximize off that and hopefully pick up some good birds. So you'll see, kind of thinking back and forth about, do I move the song sparrow here? This is really where you just kind of plan a few turns ahead. So I think, okay, after this turn, after I've taken the food, I'm going to have 3 turns left. So one of them's going to be playing the woodstock. What am I going to do with the other 2? And more importantly, what am I going to do with those turns to make sure that the song sparrow ends the round in the forest? Because with that end of round goal, birds in the forest, you'll see I've got a bit of a leg up here. So 2 birds compared to my opponent 1. Obviously I've got enough turns now to get birds and food and potentially look at playing something. But really, I'm definitely going to be looking to have that song sparrow up there, because either it will allow me to win instead of tying, or tie instead of losing. And both of those is going to be worth points for me. So you see I do play the Woodstock, and it's a pretty good draw on the bonus card. So Viticulturalist, I really like this bonus card. I think it is, one of the stronger bonus cards in the game. Really, really easy to meet that lower threshold. As you'll see, I have already actually got those 2 birds down in the Sapsucker and the Song Sparrow. But equally, those 4 birds, I've got the rest of the game to get 2 more of those cherry-eating birds. There's already the Cassin's Finch in the tray, which I could potentially look at picking up this round. But equally, there's plenty of other strong birds throughout the rest of the game that I could look to play to meet that. And yeah, really, hopefully try and maximise and get 7 points off that bonus card. So I've talked enough about my setup. I will just briefly look at what my opponent's got going. So they've got something pretty nice at the moment. So you see, obviously, they had that red start down from the start of the game. But their wetlands is looking pretty good as well. So they've got the Mallard and the Mourning Dove. So the Mallard, that's going to let them see extra cards. And then the Mourning Dove's going to give them eggs. Mourning Dove in particular, really strong bird early in the game. Either by putting it in your forest or your wetlands, you're just able to gain eggs while doing something else. And in many situations, that can save you from having to spend a turn just laying 2 eggs, which, particularly in the early game, can be a bit slow. So you see I do go for the Cassin's Finch, just kind of planning ahead a little bit, and then I can move that Song Sparrow up. So here we go, we have that fresh tray, and those of you who know me, you'll know I'm looking straight at that Indigo Bunting. Really a bird that I like to play. Obviously it's going to work well with the Viticulturalist bonus card, as I was talking about. It's going to help with end of round goal 3 and 4. And really, I think just when you are able to gain food, even if it's just 1 food, while doing another action other than your forest. So in this case with the bunting, having it in your grasslands means you can get a food while laying eggs. And yeah, I just think that's such a strong power to have. And particularly where, I've actually got quite a good forest. So with something like the bunting, you can get stuck on the bird feeder where you can't gain either the worm or the cherry that the power allows you to. But with my forest, I'm able to reset the bird feeder pretty easily. And I think this is a case where you look at your opponent as well and you see, okay, they've got a pretty strong forest. They're potentially going to look at building something up there that's going to allow them to get lots of food. So yeah, I can certainly expect that they will be resetting the bird feeder pretty frequently as well. You see I think a little bit about this turn. And do in the end go for the bunting. So go obviously 1 from the deck and then take the bunting. So yeah, kind of another reason go for that. At the moment, if I want to try and get it down, the bird feed is not really cooperating. So obviously I'm going to need a seed to play that. So I am really hoping that my opponent does reset this, but at the same time I'm kind of looking at the train thinking, okay, the nuthatch and the grasshopper sparrow, both pretty nice birds considering their setup. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are going to go for birds here and take 1 or both of those. Okay, back over to my turn now, and you'll see they do take the grasshopper sparrow. Unfortunately for them, it reveals the spotted towhee, which another one of those gaining food in the grassland birds, and another one of those birds that's going to meet the viticulturalist. So I was pretty happy to take that. Unfortunately, does then reveal the Franklin's Gull for my opponent. So Franklin's Gull, this is one of those strong 4 birds that we have house rules for in the tournament's Discord. So obviously now being in round 2, my opponent can pick that up and yeah, look to play that straight away. So like I say, it's a bit unfortunate, but it's not the worst position at the moment because actually they'd already invested quite a bit of time setting up that wetlands. And now when they play the Gull, obviously that wetlands is kind of going to be a bit useless for them. Obviously it is still a nice position for them to be in, so I'm not going to sit here and feel too sorry for them because it's a nice bird. So yeah, you see I go for food here. And really my plan at this point is to try and get this towhee and the indigo bunting down. So if I play the towhee and lay eggs, I can look to get the seed, and that's going to help me get the bunting down. Now, I wasn't worried about the Gull, but then when my opponent plays the raven, I do start to worry about it a little bit more. So that was quite unfortunate. I think they did find that just by digging through the deck, by taking cards on one of the previous turns. So yeah, I know I'm kind of up against it at this point. When I see that they've got, the raven and the Gull, basically the 2 of the strongest 4 birds in the game, And now whenever they run that grasslands action, it's going to be getting them food and cards and points through the eggs as well. So yeah, for them it's all about just picking up birds, particularly big point birds, and trying to play those. So you'll see they go for the blackbird first, which I think you can make a case for. Just able to get a few more points, and through their wetlands actions, they've been drawing plenty of cards. So really, not a huge surprise that they'll be able to tuck something there. Now I am kind of rethinking my plans a little bit, just based on what I'm seeing from my opponents. So this end of round goal with birds in the wetlands, I'm thinking if I can get to 3, that's going to be worth 3 more points. So I talked about this in a video recently when I looked at the end of round goals. If you can win an end of round instead of tying, that's basically worth 3 more points for you. So while the Lincoln Sparrow, it's only 3 points on its own, if it helps me get 3 points from the end of round goal, that's basically 6 points for this bird, on top of the ability to use its power through the migratory effect, as well. Looking at the next end of round goal, eggs in the grasslands, I think this actually worked out as a pretty good play, because I can now lay eggs, I can get the seed, and then that's going to allow me to get the bunting down next turn. But yeah, really this is one of those where I could just kind of see, based on what my opponent was doing, the way they played the blackbird, it kind of signaled to me that they were going to look to try and get this goal down. And for them, is it worth spending another turn playing a wetland bird to tie this end of round, rather than get this really powerful card down? I don't know if it's necessarily worth that for them. But for me, pretty straightforward. Like I said, I can lay eggs, move the sparrow, and get the seed from the tower here. And that's not a bad turn. I still get 3 points. I get the food, and then really once I get this bunting down, it's all going to be about how much food I can get in this grasslands. If I can avoid having to take too many more forest actions and just rely on the food from those 2 grassland birds, that's really going to help out. Particularly with some of the birds I've got in my hand. So this blue-winged warbler, it's only going to eat worms. I can get that through the bunting. If I look at my casting finch, that is going to get me another bonus card, that eats seeds, which come from the towhee, and the cherries, which can come from the bunting. So yeah, really some good flexibility there. Now, all of what I was saying about my opponent not wasting a turn tying that end of round, in the end, they do end up playing the Willet. So there's kind of 2 sides to this. There's one which is, okay, I've lost those 3 points. But there's another side of it, which is I force my opponent to waste a turn not getting the goal down. And, they picked up that card maybe early, middle round 2. And we're now sort of getting into round 3, which is, towards the end of the mid game. You're getting into that late game where you want everything set up already. And so by forcing them to kind of delay a little bit, they obviously get the Franklin's goal down now, but that was maybe a couple of turns they missed out on being able to activate it, which is always a little bit slower. So yeah, disappointing to not win that end of round goal, but I think it was still a worthwhile play, just by slowing my opponent down and also helping me out with getting more cards, and then ultimately more eggs as well through these migratory powers. So really for me at this point, the only question is, what order do I do things? So I was thinking, I could go for cards, move the migratory birds up, and then lay eggs. But I am looking at this meadowlark I've got in my hand. So 2 bird points for 2 food might not look like a lot. And this is actually a bird that I have said some not very nice things about in the past. However, I think it works pretty well in this use case. So I've got plenty of ground nest spaces. You'll see, obviously, the meadowlark itself has got 4, towhee's got 4, and then there's the Lincoln Sparrow, which has got 2 as well. So if I can get this down, it's really going to help for this 3rd end of round goal, and just help me get some more points as well. So ultimately, I'm only going to be getting maybe 3 or 4 eggs usually from my activations in the grasslands. So this is going to give me a couple more. And yeah, when you see your opponent running strong grasslands where they're generating a lot of eggs, I think you can afford to give the occasional free egg to them, and yeah, not worry too much about that. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Get the meadowlark down, and then now on this next turn, I can take cards, I can move those 2 birds up, and then I've got 2 turns to lay eggs and hopefully fill up as many of these grassland spots as possible and really target this end of round goal. So my opponent kind of caps off their grasslands really there with the grasshopper sparrow that they took earlier, and that's just such a nice grasslands that they've got. Huge points. Another bird they potentially would have looked at getting is that sandhill crane, so really not useful for me, but it's nice to kind of pick up these birds that would be perfect for your opponent in this scenario. So just had a little sneak at the score there, and it's not looking too comfortable for me. I think normally at this kind of point in the game I'd hope to be on more than 40 points, but I've got some good options as we go into this end game really. Obviously going to get quite a few points from these grasslands activations. At the same time, I'm going to be getting food to play some of these big point birds. So particularly, like I said before, I think the Cassin's finch, and then that warbler as well. Those are big point birds. Hopefully get a nice bonus card from the finch if I do look to play that. And they're going to help as well for that final end of round goal with the eggs in the bowl nest. So I think kind of my rule of thumb when I'm facing such a strong engine like this is trying to find points from elsewhere. So things like end of round goals and bonus cards, I know I'm not going to be able to keep up with bird points because they're just going to get a huge number of big point birds through that engine. I know they're going to be getting lots of tuck cards that I'm going to be missing out on as well, and of course all those eggs at the same time. So when you know that you're going to be at a disadvantage in some areas of the game, you really need to work hard and make up that difference in other areas. So like I say, really for me in this game it's all about bonus cards and it's targeting these end of round goals. So I'm in a pretty strong position for this one. Even if they lay eggs on this final turn, which I'm almost certain that they will do, and they fill up completely, I can lay eggs again and it's not going to be a problem. I can still get plenty of eggs in these grassland spaces and safely win the end of round. Here we go, last turn of the round, and they do indeed lay eggs there. So, like I say, I think that either put them at a tie or at a slight advantage for this end of round goal, but easy enough for me to, just lay eggs here. Try and keep as many off the ground nest spaces as possible because I know, through that meadow-like power, I can only lay eggs in ground nest spaces, so I need to keep as many of those free as possible. But hopefully, playing a couple of these birds in this final round, I'll be able to clear up some spaces, and shouldn't be a problem here. So here we go into the final round. First course of action is to play this Cassin's finch, and just hope for a nice bonus card. Let's see what we're going to get. So it's Wildlife Gardener, which I'm pretty happy with. Whenever you kind of take that gamble late in the game, particularly for a bonus card, to be getting 4 points, I know I'm already going to be playing that warbler anyway, so basically that bonus card is already done. 4 points is nice. I'd normally take 2 or 3, so basically that Cassin's finch, that got me 7 points, and then this warbler as well is going to get me another 7, so that's for me kind of sort of the benchmark for a final round action. If I'm scoring 6, 7 points, I know that's a good turn, so I can be pretty happy with that. And really for me, it's just about what am I going to be doing for the rest of this round. So I know I'll be getting that warbler down and trying to lay eggs in as many of these bold nest spaces. I will have to think a little bit just about my egg spaces and kind of think carefully about whether I'm going to be able to just lay eggs for the rest of the game. You'll see at the moment I've got 5 egg spaces. When I play the warbler, that is going to cost me 1 egg and give me 2 more spaces on top. So that gives me 8 egg spaces. The problem is that whenever I lay eggs, I'm getting 6 and potentially 7 if I look to discard food. So really, that's not enough egg spaces to lay eggs twice. So you'll see I'm kind of looking a little bit about playing this common merganser in my hand. I do have the food for that. It's not a great turn. Like I said, kind of that benchmark of 6 or 7 points. This merganser is only going to get me 4 after paying the egg cost. So it is a bit of a shame. And particularly, look at my opponent. They've had some pretty big point turns. They recently did that triple play in the forest with the vireo, the kinglet, and the spotted owl. So that's no doubt scored them big points, while also helping them for this end of round goal. So that was a really nice play for them. But really pretty straightforward, I think. Get this warbler down. Like I say, spend eggs from the ground nest spaces where possible and look to fill up these bowl nest spaces. I think it is going to be pretty close for this end of round, particularly with my opponent doing that triple play, as I said. That put them in a really strong position, so not quite sure if I'm going to be able to compete with that. But I've managed to pull off some pretty nice turns in this final round especially. And yeah, I can lay eggs here, I can discard a seed, knowing that I'm going to be getting a seed back from the Tauhi. So I think that's always a nice, small thing to do here. Obviously, I could play the Merganser first and then lay eggs, but that's then going to leave me with a seed at the end of the game rather than the extra eggs. So just by laying eggs first here, where I do have the egg capacity to do that, like I say, I can spend that seed, get the seed back, and then play the Merganser, and that's brought me out 1 point further ahead than where I would have been had I played the Merganser first. So we come into the final turn here, and it was a bit of an interesting play from my opponent. You see they did a double play with the common yellowthroat, which I'm not sure I've ever seen this before. I think this was purely for the end of round, so I think we were going to be tied on the bowl nest spaces, and obviously that yellowthroat is going to help get some more points as well. But really that yellowthroat on its own, it's only a point, and it's cost them 2 eggs to play it. And we know that they're only going to get 3 points net from this end of round goal by winning instead of tying. So potentially there might have been a better play for them there. But yeah, here we go into the points, and I wasn't really sure how to feel. I felt kind of mixed. Obviously, my opponent's engine was so much better than mine, but really I was able to score well in the bonus cards and the end of round goals, like I was talking about before. And actually, Dale came out ahead on eggs, so really it was all going to be about these tuck cards, and it wasn't quite enough for my opponent. So I did just about manage to sneak it in the end by 2 points. And yeah, I just think when you look at these two engines and the kind of relative strength of these, it was such a surprise to me that it was even kind of close at the end, let alone that I could win this. So really, I think kind of the lessons from this are around the tempo at which you set up your engine. On paper, this is a really good engine, but it was only set up as they headed into the end of round 3. If this was an end of round 2 engine, absolutely, this is game winning, 120 points or so. But yeah, the kind of speed at which it was set up maybe held back the scoring potential. But for me, I think this is the first time I've ever played 2 of those migratory birds in the same game. Every so often I might play 1, particularly like I was talking about at the start of the game, where it helps with end of round goals. I think you can make a case for that there, but yeah, it's certainly not every day that you see 2 of these migratory birds go down, and definitely not every day that you see them coming out on the winning side. So that was a nice surprise, and yeah, another thing I learned really is the strength of those migratory birds if you are able to use them in the way that maximizes their potential and really help out with those end of round goals, like I said. So thank you very much for watching. I do have a playlist with a bunch of other gameplay videos if you want to check those out. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.